Guys, welcome back to the Mama Nurse channel. I'm Vanessa and today we are gonna have a nurse rant. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for joining the family. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I drop a new video. First and foremost, happy birthday to me. I just celebrated my 30th birthday ago now. It was great. This year was actually the first year that my children were able to sing me happy birthday and really know what a birthday was. So that was probably the best part of my day, hearing my children say happy birthday, mom, and sing me happy birthday. That was literally heart melting. I loved it. Kept it chill. We were at home. My spouse bought me a cookie cake. If you know me, cookie cakes, I can finish the whole thing. Cake, it's good. I'll have a slice, but cookie cakes, I'll finish it. So with a cookie cake, we had some ice cream, we opened gifts. Really a blessed birthday. I'm happy to have another year on this earth, and I'm thankful for the family that I have. So Libras, if you're a Libra, go ahead and drop that down below. If you're not, let me know what zodiac sign you are.
A Libra is a person born between September 23rd and October 22nd. Libras are known for being charming, beautiful, and well-balanced. They thrive on making things orderly and aesthetically pleasing. They also crave balance, and they can be equally as self-indulgent as they are generous.
So let's get into this rant. I don't know where this came from, but I just had to speak on it. So when it comes to tube feeding and patients, even though if you have a patient whose tube feeding is running at 30 mLs per hour and you go to change it and you realize, oh, there's still a lot in the bottle, and you walk away and say, oh, I don't have to change it right now, change it, please. Feeding needs to be changed every 24 hours. That includes the tubing and the actual bottle of feed. The reason being, it's still a milk product. It has a lot of nutrients and additives in it. So after that 24-hour span, it's basically like leaving milk out on your counter for a couple days. It starts to clot and clump up together, and it's not nutritious or safe for your patient. So even though you have more than half the bottle or even half the bottle left, it still needs to be changed every 24 hours. I went into one of my patients' room at the end of my shift, and I did like a half shift. So I went in from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I took over from another nurse. So I took their assignment, and towards the end of the shift, I was just walking around making sure that everything was okay. This shift happened to be a day shift, and I don't know if it's the same across the board, but I know here in Florida, typically night shift is responsible for changing out the tube feeding. So something, I guess because I work night shift usually, I looked up at the bottle and I noticed that it was out of date. I went to grab a new bottle of tube feeding and tubing and everything. I went in to change it and started it up. It was flushing fine and everything. A little while later, maybe about 30 minutes later or so, the pump started beeping. So I went in, started to try to flush it. It wasn't flushing. So, you can pull back, try to aspirate, see if there's a little clot or anything like that. Milk the tubing to see if there's a clump that's stuck there, and usually you'll be able to break it apart. So I started doing that, no results. After a couple times, I got a clump of tube feeding that came out. Reattached the tubing, started up the pump again, walked away. A few minutes later, it started beeping again. So I went back in, repeated the same thing, got another clump out. This was because that tube feeding was past 24 hours. The same way that you wouldn't want to drink milk that has been sitting on your counter for hours or even days is the same way you should feel about your patient. They don't want tube feeding that has been hanging for more than 24 hours just because you don't want to be wasteful. In this profession, yes, you don't want to waste supplies and things like that. But when it comes to sanitation purposes, the safety of your patients, and proper protocol, tube feeding needs to be removed within 24 hours. At my job, we actually have our pumps programmed to where if it has been hanging for more than 24 hours, it will give you a flashing alert. Unfortunately, it does not have an audible sound to it, but you can clearly walk by and see if that tube feeding has been hanging for more than 24 hours. And even if the bottle wasn't dated, you would know, okay, I need to change this tube feeding. So leaving your tube feeding up greater than 24 hours can cause serious complications in your patients. It can cause infection, it can cause a longer healing process, ultimately lead to death. So you may think that, oh, it's okay. No, it's really not. Your patient is depending on you to take that extra step. Make sure that their tube feeding is within date and within the correct amount of hours. Really, from the time that you get your supplies, prime your pump, program your pump, and hang it and connect it to your patients, all of that could be done in 5 minutes or less. If you're newer, maybe it will take you about 10 minutes or so, but it's really not a long process. So the 5 minutes that you take to get this job done could be the difference between life and death for your patient. So for any newer nurses that are out there, the actual process for changing out your tube feeding, typically you would already have your pump set up, and that would be the one that we use is called a Kangaroo Pump. So you have your pump set up, turn it on, you have your tube feeding, and you have your flush bag if your company that you work for supplies the flush bags. Otherwise, you just do a manual flush. So you connect your tubing to your tube feed container, and then you put water in your flush bag if you have a flush bag. If not, you just work with the tube feeding alone. Once you connect the tubing to your tube feeding, you go ahead and hang it. You wire it through your pump. You can either manually hold the button to prime your pump, or you can set it to do it automatically. If you do have a flush bag, I do recommend flushing it with the water or priming it with the water bag first. That way you don't lose much of your tube feeding. The reason why you want to prime your pump is because you're going to get air out of the tube so that there's not air going into your patient's stomach. So if you prime it with the water first, I like to think of it as a quick washing of the tubing, and then you prime it with the tube feed second, and that gets that other pocket of air because it's like a Y connected tubing setup, so it gets that other pocket of air out. So once again, it's not going into your patient's stomach. So once you've primed your pump, if this is a new patient, you would program your settings for how long you want the tubing to run for, how many mLs you want it to run at, and you can program your flushes automatically as well. So you program that. Once you do that, you flush your patient's NG tube, PEG tube, whatever they have that's giving them their nutrition. You want to flush that, check your residuals if you already had tube feeding going. Flush it to make sure that it's still patent, and then you can connect your tube feeding and start your tube feeding. Always remember to have your knobs. There's one that says off. You want to make sure that it's off to the out port so that the tube feed is actually going to your patient and not into your bed. For workers, I think all of us have experienced walking into a room and realizing that you did not turn your tube feeding to the right port, walk into a bed full of tube feed. I promise you, if you don't learn from that the first time, the second time it happens to you, you will never do it again. You will make sure that you check and double check to make sure that it's turned the right way. So once you do all of that, then you can hit run on your pump, and there you go. In less than 5 minutes, your patient is getting their nutrition, they're not being exposed to any bacteria, and you've completed your tasks in a safe manner to take care of your patient. So this is just a really random rant, but it was just something that I wanted to share with you all. I didn't even really plan on filming tonight, but I just felt like it needs to be talked about, so here it is. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, happy birthday to me. I turned 30 this year. I'm thankful, I'm blessed, and I pray to see many more birthdays to come. I hope you enjoyed this quick nurse rant. If you enjoyed it, let me know down below or leave me a like on this video. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and live life.